Hey guys, it's Bailey and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a quick review of two brand new products from the brand YSL. They are the Touche Éclat Blur Perfector and Touche Éclat Blur Primer. Both of these items were sent to me by Influenster, and so when they gave me the opportunity to give them a try, I said yes please, because we are in the dead of summer heat, and not just any summer heat, but as a lot of you guys may know, this is my first summer in Austin, Texas, so it's considerably hotter than recent summers past. So I was definitely looking for an opportunity to try both of these products because they both, in some way, shape, or form, promise to extend the life of your makeup. So I've had them for a few weeks now, been able to give them a try, and I have some thoughts on them. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first thing I want to talk about is the primer, since it is kind of the first step of the two if you're using them in conjunction. First step is the primer. You apply that all over. This has flecks of golden. Oh, and one thing I want to mention, this is not a full size. Like, this retails for $52, but the full size is 1 ounce, and this is like a third of the size. This is 0.33, I think. So don't be worried about the price. I mean, it is very expensive, but this isn't all you get. You actually do get a full 1 ounce size container. But I digress. Like I was saying, it has gold flecks that are suspended in this kind of gel-like formula. It is a dimethicone-based primer, but it's mixed with, I think, 4 different nourishing oils, they call them. So I think that thins the formula out a little bit so that it doesn't leave your skin feeling overwhelmingly slick. Like, I hate primers that leave your skin feeling silky smooth, as weird as that might sound, because honestly, it makes me feel like my foundation is going to slide right off, and more often than not it does. Those primers just don't work like a primer should on my combination skin. So I was a little worried when I first started using this that this is just going to be another one of those kinds of primers. Fortunately, it dries down. A lot of that silkiness goes away. Not all of it completely, but most of it does. It doesn't feel super greasy or filmy on my skin right after I apply it. It dries down somewhat, and I think that those oils in there help balance out your natural oil production so that your skin doesn't produce extra oil throughout the day. Now, the way I wanted to try this was put half on my face and then wear nothing, no primer on the other half of my face, which is basically what I do every day. I kind of rely on the lasting power of my foundation and setting powder, so that's exactly what I did. I used this as a primer on one side of my face and then did my normal foundation and powder routine on the other side, and I have to say, I did not notice a difference. I didn't notice my foundation applying any smoother, and I didn't notice it lasting any longer, unfortunately. I'll flash a before and after picture up here for you so you can see what it looks like, but honestly, yeah, I have to say that I do like the way it feels on my skin over any other primer, but in terms of actually adding some lasting power to my makeup, didn't do it so much for me. Next up is the Touche Éclat Blur Perfector. This retails for $55, and this actually is the full-size product, so you can get a feel for what you actually get for that much. The compact is this gorgeous pink little thing, and inside it does come with a sponge. Unfortunately, you can't put it in the compact and have it close. There is a black kind of velveteen case that comes with it. I personally find that cumbersome. I really do wish they could have found a way to fit the sponge in here so it all fit together nicely, but it doesn't. You do have to keep the sponge separate. Then you open up to find you have a really nice size mirror here, and the product itself is this really lightly tinted kind of pressed balm. A few other people have similar products that with this texture out, namely Mali's Face Defender, I believe that's what it's called, which is the one I've tried, and then CoverGirl also came out with one a year ago with their collection last summer. I have not tried that to compare, but I do know that the texture is very similar. Even though this is rose tinted, there is no color payoff that comes here. It's very, very subtle, so shouldn't expect that as you're applying it to your face. So beyond color, the biggest way I would say it differs from the Mali that I've tried is that it's a little less sticky. The consistency is a little thinner and a little less sticky, which I personally like, because for as effective as the Mali was for me, it did kind of feel like I had this barrier on my skin that didn't allow it to not breathe, obviously, but you know, that sentiment where it just your skin feels a little suffocated and a little claustrophobic. So this is a little bit thinner and lighter. It does leave your skin feeling nice and smooth, and this guy is supposed to be a multitasker. First up, it is supposed to blur imperfections, and so basically you can apply it to your bare skin, no foundation, no anything, and it's supposed to optically blur any hyperpigmentation or freckles if you want to, blemishes, anything like that. So that that is the first thing that I tried. You can see before and after here, and what I find it did most was even out my skin tone. You can see I have blemishes around my chin, discoloration in my under eye area, and redness around my nose. It did not do a lot in the way of dulling discoloration like that, but I think what you can see most around, especially my cheek area, is that it evened out that texture and that skin tone right around that area. So I definitely think it does make a difference. Whether or not that's all I want to do for my routine that day, I can't necessarily say that, especially since I have tried applying makeup over this. If this is my first step, kind of using this as a primer instead of the actual primer, I would advise against it. Your makeup kind of lays a little weird over top, so, and I find it affects the lasting power. It doesn't actually prevent shine at all, so wouldn't recommend that. If you are going to apply this solely as a blur or a perfecting kind of cream, do it with the intention to not layer makeup over it. This can also be used to set makeup and mattify, and so then the next time I tested it, I used it to set my under eye area and mattify my T-zone, specifically my chin, where I've been having some breakouts, and so I do want to try and blur any other uneven texture that's left over even after I have applied foundation and concealer. So that is exactly what I did in the before and after picture that, once again, I will flash up here. I tested it in the same way I did the primer, wearing it the exact same day that I wore the primer, just in certain different zones of my face. And I have to say, in that picture, you'll see on one side I am wearing the Blur Perfector, and on the other, like I mentioned before, I'm just wearing my normal foundation concealer routine with a setting powder in my under eye area. And I do want to point out that the setting powder that I'm using is this Serenity Scott Pressed Powder Foundation, so it is going to provide a little bit of extra coverage, but when I could see both of them together, the difference was just huge to me. I found that the Serenity Scott evened out and canceled any other additional discoloration that my foundation and concealer couldn't, whereas the Blur Perfector couldn't really cancel out any of that discoloration, and I found that my fine lines were a little bit more pronounced when I used the YSL over the Serenity Scott. So just lasting power aside, I tend to prefer the appearance of pressed powder over the YSL. Then when it came to lasting power, I have to say both performed equally as well. I didn't notice the YSL outlasting the pressed powder. My face pretty much looked uniform all the way around, despite the fact that on one side I was wearing both the primer and the Perfector, and on the other I was wearing my normal foundation and powder routine. So bottom line, folks, here is that these new products from YSL didn't really float my boat. If I had to recommend one, it would probably be the Blur Perfector, but not to use as a setting product or a mattifying product, but mostly as a product to be worn alone to just even out your overall skin texture. But like I said, it doesn't really act like a primer, so this has to be really all that you're planning on wearing on that day, unless you apply some mascara and maybe a lipstick to complement it all. So that's it for my thoughts on those products. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, found everything that I talked about useful. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!